in 2019, the first time capsule buried by Stumpy Sanderson and his gang of mischievous working-class boys, and which was actually an old Watney's Party 7 can, was unearthed. Then in 2023, the second time capsule, which was an old Courage Jackpot Bitter Party can, was discovered. And now, Whistling 5 Anarchic Productions, in conjunction with the 1970s Cigarette Appreciation Club and Puffer Patterson's Benevolent Fund for Aging Thespians, proudly presents Series 2 of Stumpy Sanderson's 1970s stories, and the 22 stories found in that second time capsule. As narrated by Andrew Brammer. Bonjour, bon après-midi, et bonsoir. The story you are about to hear is narrated in the first person, because I, just like Stumpy, witnessed firsthand the momentous events which it describes. So, let's park up the rally chopper, dim the lava lamp, switch off that episode of Catweasel, finish up the plate of Vesta beef curry, crack open a can of Double Diamond, light up a mannequin cigar, and kick back, sit back, and listen in to the anarchic and outrageous japes, scrapes and capers of Stumpy Sanderson and his gang. For this episode, we head back to 1973 for the Lea Valley Meteor. On a freezing Friday evening, Stumpy Sanderson, Puffer Patterson and me turned into the bottom of Kingsbury Avenue, full of excitement and anticipation. For tonight, we were staying over at Stumpy's. Then tomorrow, we would be up and out well before dawn, back to Kingsbury Avenue to watch the most eagerly anticipated sporting event of the year, the grand final of the East Dunstable Milk Float Challenge Cup, between our trusty milkman, Old Bob Cripps, driving the Lea Valley Meteor and going for a 7th straight win, and the upstart challenger, the new milkman on the rounds, the cocksure and swaggering Flash Danny McKenzie, driving the Unigate Flyer. Passing the tall, locked park gates, our breath-blowing icy clouds, gloved fingers feeling like they were locking solid, we spotted Phil the Ferret, who was a couple of years above us at school. He was working in his driveway, a small lighting rig set up as he hosed and cleaned down frozen-caked mud from his elder brother's scrambler motorbike. "Hi, lad," said Phil, his rodent-like features carrying his animation. "Looking forward to tomorrow? What odds have you heard for the race?" The small and portly Puffer, who was the best of us with such things, duly responded with his trademark thespian flourish. "I am afraid all the money has been for that rascal Flash Danny. They have him at 15 to 8 on. Old Bob is 8 to 1. "That Flash Danny is an arrogant swine," said Stumpy. "He's not only been picking off old Bob's customers and taking his round, but it looks like he could now be taking his crown. That Unigate float of his looked unstoppable in the semi-final." "Unless," said Phil the Ferret, a mischievous twinkle in his eye, "the going was changed in his favour." "What do you mean?" I asked. Phil just grinned. "Come and watch the race from down here tomorrow. Don't bother standing at the finishing line, and like I have, put all you can on old Bob." So, early the next freezing morning, we headed out in our padded bomber jackets, bobble hats and monkey boots, the heavily frosted and icy silent pavements and roads glittering and glistening beneath the streetlights. And we were not only full of excitement over the coming race, but also intrigued and fascinated by Phil the Ferret's comments, particularly as he knew a thing or two about mechanised racing. What did he mean about the going being changed in old Bob's favour? And telling us as well to put all that we could on old Bob, like he had. Nearing the top of Kingsbury Avenue, we approached a small gaggle of donkey-jacketed and flat-capped spectators, who were rubbing their hands and smoking Old Holborn roll-ups. They were here to watch both the start and the finish, for the race would begin here at the top of the avenue. The milk floats would then race down the road, past Phil the Ferret's house, then would swing round in the turning zone opposite the park gates and head back up to finish where they started. Having pooled our pocket monies together, Puffer then duly went and put our money on with Eric the Tout. All of it on old Bob to win. As we set off down the road, someone asked, "Aren't you watching it up here, lads?" "No, we're going to watch them at the turn," said Stumpy. On the way down, we passed and acknowledged some of the hard-faced spectators, including a very few near our age. People were scattered about in dotted ones and twos, for only those in the know were attending. Numbers needed to be kept low to avoid the event attracting unwanted attention from any busybodies. There was also a rule in place of strictly no cheering. We passed a trio of brightly made-up female admirers who had come to support Flash Danny, already fast building his reputation as a rival in that area of activity to the co-op milkman Casanova Chris. As we reached Kingsbury Gardens, which was being used as the paddock area, we picked up the unmistakable whir of batteries, the clink and rattle of milk crates, and then they emerged. First Flash Danny in his white and orange Unigate float, his long blonde hair and sideburns visible from beneath his cocked white cap, wearing leather driving gloves and a fur-collared brown leather flight jacket over his white milkman's coat. And then the white, green and yellow float of the Lea Valley Meteor, and the reassuring friendly figure of old Bob, his years of experience and know-how etched into his thin, weathered face behind black-rimmed glasses, wearing his trademark black cap, camel duffel coat, and thick woolen gloves. Giving us his trademark salute, we responded with our thumbs up. Both floats were fully laden, for one of the rules was maximum crate weight. We reached Phil the Ferret, standing outside his drive. "Morning, lads. Bets all laid?" "All done," we said. Looking at the white frosted road surface, Stumpy said, "This is going to be hair-raising in these conditions." "Yeah," grinned Phil the Ferret, and then pointing continued, "particularly when they turn just down there." As we all looked down to the designated turning zone, we now saw that that part of the road looked different. An observation expressed by Stumpy. "Why's that bit of road not covered in frost? It looks like glass." "Almost," said Phil. "It's black ice. Thought I'd even things up a bit. While I was hosing my brother's scrambler, I got the idea. So I got up a couple of hours ago and came and gave the turning zone a good watering. It's frozen solid now. We all know Flash Danny will come hammering down in the lead and do his usual fancy turn, whereas old Bob is a steady turner. So I thought, why not make things a bit more exciting? Let's see how good that Flash Danny really is." So now we all knew what Phil the Ferret had meant last night, and as, in the distance, we saw the two milk floats take their starting positions at the top of the road, the anticipation was like waiting for the start of a Grand Prix. And then we saw the starting steward Vic the Corona Man raise and swiftly lower his flag, and the race was on. There is nothing like the sight of two milk floats hurtling and racing side by side down a trafficless avenue with no parked cars. How they sped, how they flew, the gleaming Unigate flyer against the much older Lea Valley Meteor, the only sounds those beautiful battery hums, and the rattle and clank of milk crates, two dairy chariots speeding over the rock-hard frosty surface. "Come on, Bob," we all mouthed, carefully keeping our voices down. "Come on, you can do it." By the time they passed Kingsbury Gardens, though, it was clear that Flash Danny was pulling away, and he had a good 5 lengths advantage on old Bob. As the floats got nearer, the hums and clanking getting louder, we could now clearly see Flash Danny's cocky grinning face, chewing furiously on his gum. But then, just before he passed us and was preparing for the turning zone, we saw the expression on his face change lightning fast from confidence to uncertainty, and then to horror as, too late, the awful realisation of the fast approaching black ice dawned on him. Flash Danny hit his brakes, desperately turning the steering wheel, but the float, its brakes unable to grip, began to spin around, spiralling round in some demonically possessed death loop. Round and round, careering out of control, milk crates and milk bottles now toppling out of the float and smashing on the road, milk everywhere, green top, red top, gold top, silver top, and then the great orange and white float mounted the pavement, and, with a huge and awful crash that echoed up the avenue, ploughed straight into the tall, green, cast-iron park gates. In the meantime, seeing everything that was happening, and having slowed up accordingly, old Bob, with his vast race experience, like the old master he was, meticulously turned the Lea Valley Meteor in the turning zone, and heading back up Kingsbury Avenue, he steered a steady drive back to glory and victory. 7 years the undefeated East Dunstable Challenge Cup winner, at odds of 8-1. As bedroom windows started opening, and bemused, startled and irritable dressing-gowned figures began appearing on front doorsteps, a few angry voices began shouting, "What's going on out there?" And, "What's all that racket?" Grinning to ourselves, we began heading back up to the top of the road to collect our winnings from Eric the Tout, leaving behind us the sight of the stunned Flash Danny, sitting shell-shocked in his float, which was now firmly wedged into those tall, locked park gates. Thank you for listening to this episode of Stumpy Sanderson's 1970s Stories. And please don't forget to check out the other stories from Series 2 and Series 1. You can also follow Stumpy Sanderson's 1970s Stories on Facebook, where you can keep up to date with all the news about live shows and other Stumpy events. There's also the website, www.stumpysanderson.co.uk, and the Stumpy Sanderson's 1970s Stories YouTube channel. And you can get in touch with me at andrew@stumpysanderson.co.uk. Until the next story, au revoir et bonne nuit, and keep grooving.
Yeah. This podcast has been recorded using a DIY punk rock philosophy. Yeah.